Good afternoon for everybody. It's always a pleasure to be here again. 1 week more to talk about big data this time. The idea today is we talk about what we can expect about what people are talking so much about big data. How can we use it in agriculture and animal production? So this is basically what we want to cover today. And basically, I also want to inform you that we will receive the questions of you, but sometimes it's very spontaneous here. So sometimes it's very difficult to follow up all the questions that come up. But we will respond all your questions in the future. So we take the questions, we make sure that everything is going well, and be back to you with short videos since the next week. Next week, not in July. We have some short videos that we put your questions and respond to you. So don't be sad. We will be sure that we'll try to respond most of the questions that you guys have. And we are still waiting for our invited today. Maybe he is a little
Yeah, I've seen that
delayed.
Aidan has connected, but I'm still waiting for his sound and image.
Okay, oh, he's coming. Good, very good. So today here in Quebec, in Santin, where Jeff is, it's a very beautiful spring day, very warm as well. So we are very happy to be in these spring times here. And at the same time, we are full of hopeness because Canada is coming for the reopen after COVID. So it starts slowly to have some activities outdoor. The parks are open, and we very slowly try to return the normal life. I don't know if you're gonna be in normal life one day, but I think it's an interesting time for us to do a lot of reflections, and I did a lot, and I learned a lot in this webinar that we have done here every week. So it's always nice, and thank you always for your presence and for you be in another side talk to us. We have some issues in the record of the webinar with Dr. Jalusa. So what we're gonna do is maybe ask Jalusa to come back here, because I received a lot of requests of you trying to connect it, because really it was a very good talk, and I'm sure that she has a lot of more things to talk to us. So I will invite her again to be with us in few days or the next month, depends on her disponibility, and we talk again about how to produce swine without antibiotics, or reduce the use of antibiotics in poultry and swine production. So it was very nice.
Hi, Elizabeth. I see that Aidan is connected, but I don't see his image. Aidan, can you speak and let me know if you were listening to us and if you were having issues with your camera?
I'm here. I don't know why it should. I see a picture, so maybe share my webcam. Does that work better?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, good. Hey, Aidan, what a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine.
Boa tarde. Very good, very good. It's nice. So I was talking here. It's always alive. It's very interesting because you need to adjust things. So the idea today is first start for you talking to me. How was your trajectory up to start with the big data and apply it in animal production?
Sure. Well, as you know, I have been in the industry for a long time, hopefully not too long, but we know each other for a long time, Elizabeth and I. Traveled throughout Europe and many other places, Latin America, of course, from my time living in Brazil. I had 28 years with Alltech, where I worked for them in over 100 countries of the world and had the chance to travel a lot. And then about 18 months ago, I decided to set up my own company called Agritech Capital, which became an investor and an advisor to some food companies, to the British government. I also worked with quite a lot of startups, and then actually had the opportunity almost just over 1 year ago to start working as CEO with a startup involved in recognition systems for animals, specifically dairy cows. So I've been in Alltech, I've been on the corporate side, in the startup world with Aidas, advisor side, government side, food side. Yeah, it's been a very exciting last 2 years, that's for sure.
Very good. In fact, for me, it's a pleasure to talk to you because I know how is your experience, is big experience, and I'm glad that we met so many years ago. But let's not talk about years, right? At this time. So, Ada, the idea about big data. For me, I also have some, I cannot say that I work with big data, but I start some let's say intentions to try to translate pathologic lesions in data, and my idea was to use it in the future. And since I started to work with it when I was at university, and a lot work with you and Alltech and many other companies, I feel a lot of resistance of people to work with it, basically because every company is very afraid to share the data. They are afraid that we are using this data for some obscure reasons or something like that. So can you share your experience when you start with and how is the acceptance of the market for this idea?
Look, agriculture is fundamentally a very conservative business. It is a conservative business in Brazil. It's a conservative business in the United States, and it's Canada and
everywhere, yes.
Europe. And many people have had bad experiences with what happens with when you give it to other people. But that said, I have here a telephone. This telephone cost me a lot of money. And this telephone allows people to know lots of things about what I do. And the reason why I accept that from happening is because, of course, I get such functionality and value from the way that they give me back insights. They tell me where I am. They tell me where I can go. They tell me where I can find things to buy. They tell me how to use my information to get more value from my life. And that's what we have to do in agriculture. It can't simply be we're collecting data. Now, you were very forward thinking in Brazil with your ideas about intestinal health and performance of birds and connecting the two sets and trying to move beyond what seemed to me to be very disconnected veterinarian animal health evaluations and the feed conversion, weight gain, and profitability of the integration. Nowadays, we are understanding more and more we have to connect those different streams of data because it's good for everybody. It's good for the farmer, it's good for the integrator, it could be very, very important for the food companies from a traceability perspective, and then animal welfare, environmental sustainability. So from my perspective, the critical piece startups, people involved in data must do, we must find ways to deliver the maximum of value to the producer that they have no concerns or fears about sharing the information with us.
And what is, because you have some experience, can you at least, because for people that are here, if you be more practical, how your experience with dairy cows? I have a lot of people from dairy cows that follow us today, and I want to ask you if you can give us a little bit, how can we start to work with big data in dairy with your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I could give examples from any type of species, any types of agriculture you want, but yeah, so within Caintus, which is a very well funded startup, it has raised a lot of money, it has a lot of traction, and probably one of the top 5 livestock ag tech startups so far, at least from a funding perspective. Now, what it is doing is it's using cameras to look at cows, to see how much time cows spend eating, drinking, and other behavior. You are going to say to me as a professor that everybody knows the answers to those questions already. We have been looking at cows for about 8,000 years since we domesticated the first cow from the auroch, and since then people have had lots of times to look at cows. But they're not looking at cows at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not looking at cows on Sunday when football is on TV. They're not looking at cows when the weather or something else occurs. And as these herds get bigger and bigger, you don't have the ability to watch 200, 2,000, or maybe even 20,000 cows at the same time. So the cameras that can watch, firstly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, suddenly records that the cows had no feed between 1:30 and 2:30 in the morning. Why did that happen? Because somebody cleaned away the old feed quickly and they deliver the new feed late, and suddenly we have artificially 1-2 hours in the middle of the night with no feed. They don't record that cows, for some reason, like to eat at one side of the bunk and not at the other. They seem to be drawn to where there's sunshine and no sunshine. They seem to be bullied by other cows, so maybe, these are all female cows. I know, Elizabeth, you're shocked to hear that females sometimes bully other females, but in cow world, sometimes a cow becomes quite a bully and they are quite aggressive. So the non-bullies stay behind out at night to eat. These are things you cannot see with the human eye, and even when you see them, you don't necessarily know what you're seeing. So from my perspective, the ability to start to introduce non-biased visual information interpreted by artificial intelligence, giving the person back on their smartphone really simple advice about what is happening on their farm and allowing them to change the management and behavior in order to maximize, again, milk production and efficiency.
So when they recognize the movement of the animals, how the machine learn, or how the machine interpret what they really observe when they have these cameras? Is the movement, how is the translation of what the camera is seeing in numbers to make it a question, algorithm for you to make a decision?
So physically, we have to go through millions of images of cows and tick them saying, this cow is drinking, this cow is eating, this cow is standing up, this cow is lying, this cow has access to feeds, this cow does not. You need a human to help teach the camera, to teach the artificial intelligence what it is it's seeing. And if you don't do that teaching, if you don't go through those millions of images, the system cannot, of course, do that on its own. As you get to a critical mass of data, as your algorithms get better, then it is self-learning. It is possible for the system to learn exactly and teach itself what it's seeing. But you also need diversity of data. So if you start to just do it on one farm or in one species or one specific situation, the algorithm becomes so specific to that situation, it can no longer be later applied to other scenarios. So really there's a balancing act here of making sure that you create something which is universal, but has deep insights in understanding things that the human eye can interpret, the human brain interprets, should I say, what the eye sees. We're seeing with the camera, interpreting with artificial intelligence what we see.
And what is some observations that you got from there that your algorithm is able to say, like, if this happens, you need to take this decision? Example for people that are followers.
Very basic. Cows, 70% of the cost of milk is represented by the feed. In fact, the same as chickens and eggs and most species. the feed is the nutrition is the most expensive. And if the feed is not available to the cow and she's not eating, then she's not producing milk. Even the loss of just half a kilo or 1 pound of feed can represent a drop of between 2 to 3 pounds of milk production. Half a kilo meaning, 1.5 kilos of milk production, because the cow's rumen is not full and therefore she's not digesting, she's not producing nutrients to make the milk. So feed intake is the major parameter we want to drive in terms of milk production. And from that perspective, awareness of whether the feed is available or whether it's not available is the critical parameter when we think about this.
I understand. So you want to say that with all the algorithm, you are able to observe how much is the impact? Can you calculate how much is the impact of the hours that it was not the feed was not available in dairy productions? Can I say that?
No, unfortunately, because animals are more complicated than it seems. But I think from my perspective, the critical piece is less feed, less milk production. As we start to implement this in more and more farms, we start to get data from thousands and tens of thousands of cows, and we will be much more precisely able to say, maybe your question, 35 minutes no feed results in 300 grams less milk production. Today, we cannot do that, but nobody else can either, because we're starting to get information that in 8,000 years we've never had before. So we're going to, no scientist or no researcher at University of Florida, not to pick Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, has ever been able to stand beside a cow 24 hours a day and watch exactly what's happening. This is the first time we have access to this level of information. And it's really exciting to see what it does, because it totally changes nutrition, veterinarian science, how we manage. Everything starts to change when you start thinking about what we can see when we have a camera there all the time.
I think it is my point of view, Aidan, with my experience to try to take the data from the field, is that first, people are expecting an answer that you need some time to have. Like I ask these questions and you say, no, I cannot answer today because I need to grab more information. I need to teach more my algorithm to be more precise and to have more information. So I think that the first we need to, they have a lot of expectation for a short period, and we need to adjust because the system is also not adjusted for artificial intelligence yet, right? It's not connected. And the second point that I saw in this process is that people are, how can I say, they say exactly what you said before, like, I already know when the cow does not eat, they are not produced very well. So we have this time, I think the time that we are living today, it's a gap because people see artificial intelligence as something very in the future. But in another areas, not agriculture, they use artificial intelligence all the time, right? So how do you think that we should work as animal producer in general, like as a society that work in animal production, for us to be more fast in these results? What people should start to think or do?
Yeah, clearly, you have to start with where the easiest opportunities lie. And today, dairy producers are very clear that if they get more feed into the cow, they get more milk. So they do things to produce more milk. And it's quite an easy discussion. But you have a chicken behind you on the wall. And chicken people, of course, well, sometimes you're a chicken person as well. So chicken people think they know all of the answers, that they're very. And I say to them, well, if I go into a chicken house and you have 30,000 broilers in the house, what is the weight of the broilers? And they say, well, it's 1.78 kilos. Okay, are you sure? Well, no, I don't know. And what is the variation? I don't know. And if I pick up 50 birds, how representative of that is of 30,000. Of course it's not, but that's the information we use. We consistently go into a house to take out a 2.1, 2.2 kilo bird, and we consistently get it wrong by 100 grams, either too much or too little. The value of that 100 grams is immense. But yet, when you talk to the chicken business, you think that you're into a business which is extremely precise in its knowledge about where things are. We not only don't know really the weights, plus or minus, we have a very big variation. We know even less about feed conversion. We usually only spot disease days after it starts. We don't know the body temperature of chickens in real time. We don't know the feed consumption in real time. You understand, and we're trying to solve it through weighing scales and different techniques. But the amount of information, let me put it more precisely, the gap between where we are and where we could be with real-time information accumulated or captured through sensors and interpreted through artificial intelligence, not through the human mind with all of the beliefs and mistakes and tiredness and things, you know, that we do, is just immense, even for a chicken business, which is quite precise. But convincing people to invest in the technology is always the challenge. I think, frankly, the first business to embrace it will definitely be dairy. It already is. Almost all digital technologies are more advanced in dairy than they are in other species. I would think pigs will be number 2 and poultry would be number 3. Even though, having worked with the broiler business and egg business, I actually would expect it to be the other way around. I would expect the poultry business to be number 1. It may end up being the last one.
Yeah, it was a pity because, in fact, in both business, if you go for artificial intelligence, I think it's ready. There is more like how can I say, in terms of detectors, and you know, the house are there is a lot of detectors that will be easier to put in artificial intelligence, but they still don't do it. And another aspect that I want to cover here with your experience, it's the fact that people are afraid to share the data. You already say I could not use always the same house because otherwise my algorithm will be specific for that situation. I could not challenge it with different kind of situation. So this means that we should work together as like many companies together and put these informations. And I felt that many people are afraid to share the data because they think we are able to see what each one is doing. What is your what you can say for these people? Like when you have the data, they are really not possible to see where they come from, or the can you explain a little bit how is the fact of confidentiality of the data in this process?
I can, and clearly we have technologies like blockchain or Bitcoin that can allow you to obscure where information comes from, but we also share information through benchmarking systems like AgriStats. Why do we do that? We do it because it makes us more money. We share information in terms of the pig industry through organizations like Genus or PIC. Why do we do it? Because it helps us being more profitable. So it fundamentally comes down to a value proposition. Is it important enough and valuable enough for me to share some of the information? Do I think live production is the critical parameter in deciding whether I make money or lose money in livestock business? The difference between, in my view, between the best and the worst in livestock costs of production are quite small. I'm talking about on an average, not, you know, there are great farms and very bad farms, but within integrators, there isn't that big a difference. And I think that that's not where the distinguishing differentiator is or competitive advantage is. I think the bigger competitive advantage is usually in how you sell the produce, whether you have a Walmart contract, whether you sell to Chipotle, if you're good with Panera Bread, or if you can get into Whole Foods. There's far more money to be made there. So I think the opportunity to share information across the live production side, even the nutrition side, justifies doing so to a degree that keeping it secret is not worthwhile. And again, I know you've used the example of other industries, but agriculture is called an industry, but it's a very imprecise industry with perspective to what we do and what outcomes we see. And it's not like the car industry, the pharmaceutical industry, you know, tell me any other industry. We're quite nice because we're in a factory, and in agriculture we have labor variability, we've got climatic variability, we've got genetic variability, we've got nutrient variability, and even things we don't understand, such as microbial variability and nutrigenomics variability. So we just have these factors that we're trying to get our head around. But it means with all of those imprecisions, we end up with an extremely imprecise system, but equally one where the opportunity to improve is huge.
Well, we work a lot in additive industry together, and you know, still I'm here. And of course, that when we try to sell an additive, and I start with you long ago, we go to the company or to the producer and say, oh, I have this new additive here. I have some trials that we did at university. We have publication about this product. So we have proof that this product is good. But still, Aidan, they also ask, but I want to see in my situation. And then when they say it, they normally ask us to put our product against another product or against another situation in, like, let's go for chickens, broilers, one house against another house. And everybody knows, and I have received a lot of invitation here that they say, oh, this is crazy. This is there not to do with science, because it's just a question of, look, this time you have better here, the other time is better there. So I would ask you to say a little bit, how could we use the artificial intelligence for this kind of decisions? That, like, if we have it, can we have a more precision decision? What kind of additive is good or more important for each situation?
Of course, and that's the promise of the ability to take a house of 30,000 birds, but using sensors, or maybe compartmentalize, so start to produce different groups within the same housing, to be able to take different samples within the same lot, so that now because in essence, when you say that we have one house with this and one house without, as you know, statistically, that's one number versus one number. And with the amount of variability in the field, I have always understood that the actual number of houses you would need to detect a difference of maybe 2% in feed conversion or weight gain is in excess of 100 houses per treatment. So clearly, by reducing the variability and increasing the amount of data that we gain from each experiment or each experience, we are putting ourselves in a situation where we can be more precise in understanding what happened when this changed. And that's always the question with a feed additive, nutritional change, or anything that happens in the farm. What happened that caused this to change? Do we have enough information to be sure that that was beneficial? The fact also of even using the human mind to interpret information is a problem. We all have our biases. We've all been in situations where I remember in Brazil many years ago, even I think before I met you, I was with an integrator in the south, and they were testing 8 antibiotics. One was good on feed conversion, another was good on weight gain, another was good on mortality. And I said, which 8 products being compared? I said, which one are you going to use? He said, the one I like. So, so he liked the person, or he liked the company, or he just felt it was time to use that product. I said, why did you do the trial? He said, just to make sure it wasn't really bad.
Yes, but this was the case, and I remember that work together. Maybe we have this program that we follow up, because it was need to follow up, because it's impossible to just believe what's going on in the farm with because the nutritionists, they ask to do a trial, but they are really not there. They really don't see the difference between farms. So really, I think the artificial intelligence, in my point of view, it's needed, it's important, and will help us to since decide the additive up to decide what kind of better animal productions we should go or reduce, because Jean Fontaine, you know, our president, he always talk about the fake meat and these new situations that animal productions will be reduced because of the impact of the productions of meat in laboratory, you know. So, and he always said that we together as not just the company, but the producers should work together against the vegans and against all this not the fake news that are sending to the animal industry. And I think he is right, because at the end of the day, all of us are affected by fake news, that we are the one that are the high pollutions in the world, or that you are not doing things well. So when you think about the artificial intelligence in the perfect world, what do you expect it will be the next step for us really go through this and start to use the artificial intelligence more precisely in animal production?
That's a lot of questions, Elizabeth, in one question. I know Jean Fontaine, so he's obviously quite a personality. I think that the challenge we're facing in fake meat, clean meat, mock meat, whatever way you want to call it, is a real one. They are addressing some issues that consumers want us to address, and maybe in the meat industry we have not been honest about. And we need to be prepared for the fact they will not probably, in my view, take very much market share, but the market share they take could be significant, because it could result in us having to find a home for more meat, more proteins. The challenge that you also have to face, I have a Chinese customer and I said, you should look at this other stuff, and he got very angry and said, we need to defend the meat industry, this is not good. And I said, do you know you're going to make twice as much money on this as you do on your normal meat? Well, he's Chinese, so that stopped the conversation. He said, tell me again how much money I make on the new stuff. So I think we're going to find some really big changes. I think from an artificial intelligence perspective, it's collect more information, find the information which is relevant, bring it together in a database, use algorithms to make intelligent decisions, communicate those decisions in a way that the farmers, producers, nutritionists, veterinarians can make smart decisions quickly. Those are a lot of big things. What you have to be clear about is this is going to happen. This is not a discussion that we're going to be having in 10 years' time. This is happening at the moment. It's being driven by every level of the food business. Coronavirus, COVID, is accelerating the trend faster than ever seen. More robots, more sensors, more blockchain, more 3D printers, and more artificial intelligence. That is inevitable. And the result of that will be a very changed world for nutritionists, a very changed world for veterinarians, and a very changed world for the sale of feed additives, which can be good and bad depending on your level of preparation for that.
Yes.
But it will not stay the same.
And who will lead it? Who will be the university, companies, association? Who do you think that you should lead this change in each sector?
I don't think it's going to be any precise company. I think it's going to be people. And within a business which has been traditionally very conservative, I would say some percentage, let's call it 90% of people, don't want things to change, so they're not going to lead it. But in every company I've talked to, I always find somebody who's visionary, who sees the future, who imagines things, a future that's different. And I think those people, I've obviously helped with last year with a big conference that was held by Watt on poultry tech down in Atlanta. I think this year they're going to run it virtually. I went on a conference last night from China, talking with the Viv group about where digital technologies go for pigs and where they go for food production in general. Another conference this morning with MBA students who are involved in MBA programs for food around the world, including California, Brazil, China, etc. So I feel I'm doing my part, but I've also met a lot of people who are in the same mindset of this is going to change and we need the food business to wake up and realize nutrition of animals, nutrition of people is not going to stay the same. But it's hard to do when you're only 5 or 10%. So obviously when you invited me onto this call, I teach at 3 universities, United States and Ireland, and on an MBA program in China. And they know I'll take every opportunity I can to talk about this subject, sometimes for my own benefit and sometimes like today, hopefully for the benefit of everybody else. But I think that you have to write LinkedIn papers, which are open access. You know, there's no benefit to me to doing it, but I think we have to make people aware that this agriculture that we've been very close to for thousands of years, 8,000 years now, and animal nutrition, which has only existed for 200 years as an industry, is going to change immensely in the next 5.
So who don't go for artificial intelligence for sure will be behind of everyone in 5 years, 10 years.
Elizabeth, if you don't understand artificial intelligence, you will be working for artificial intelligence.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is very good.
Hi.
Hey, this question is a little bit tricky, but I would like to ask it because I think that this is also play important aspect in our industry. It's the corruption, something that make more difficult to go for artificial intelligence. I mean, because when you have some kind of deviation, let's not see corruption, some immoral deviation inside the company, it will be easier for detected it when you have artificial intelligence compared with the way we manage the data today?
It should. I would like to think corruption doesn't exist. I think there's certainly different ways. Decisions are taken for the wrong reasons, which I think is the more important thing. And there are many reasons why humans do that. It could be for some reason that they're going to benefit from it financially themselves, but also, to be clear, people make decisions. I talked about my example of the 8 antibiotics. They choose it because they went to university with the person. They choose it because they go to the same church. They choose it because their children play football together. So none of those are corruption, but they influence the way the decision takes place. And with artificial intelligence, that human cognitive choice, it will be taken away to some degree and replaced with a more accurate, more economic, hopefully more sustainable choice.
For sustainability, for sure.
That's what I see as being the promise or the opportunity of the future of where this starts to play in.
Yes, we are almost at the end of our conversation today. I would like to ask you, or this time just for you to give a message for people that are followers today, what you want to give as a final message for them about this subject.
Yeah, well, as you can tell, I'm a very open person. I publish a lot on my social media, specifically LinkedIn. I tell people where I'm going, what I see through Twitter. I encourage people to do the same thing, so we become multipliers of the message and more people see it. And when I get the opportunity to speak at conferences, speak like this, go to universities, I do so. I'd like to think there would be more people that will do the same thing. The primary message I have is that your job will change, our industry is changing, our future is inevitably full of change. That change can be a very good thing, but it requires you to be ready for it. There are great books by a writer from Israel called Yuval Harari, and he's written Homo sapiens, Homo Deus, 21 lessons for the 21st century. And he was interviewed and he was asked, what do you think children entering university should study? Good question. So I thought he would answer the question quickly. I watched it on YouTube, and he took a long time to answer. He said, "You would think I'd know the quick answer because I've heard this question before, but it takes me a time." He said, "What I've learned to say is it doesn't really matter whether they study agriculture or medicine or mathematics or literature. What they need to realize is when they leave university that the learning does not stop. If you stop learning when you leave university, then you will have a problem in this near future." So yeah, my lesson would be go to YouTube, go read papers, ask people, learn, be a continuous learner, and that's the way you keep yourself relevant in agriculture now and in the future.
And don't be afraid of artificial intelligence, right? Because this is what's gonna do. Thank you so much, Ada, for your time. Thank you for to be here today, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Obrigado, foi um prazer.
Obrigada. Thank you so much for you that is with us this afternoon, and I see you next week. We talk about the quality of ingredients with Dr. Everton Crabb. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.